Hey, what's going on, guys? At the Dana White's Contender Series post-fight presser, Dana White did what Dana White's been doing recently, and that is giving Jon Jones praise and non-stop just sucking him off left and right. And we are going to brutally expose Dana White for his lies covering for Jon Jones regarding the Stipe Miocic, Tom Aspinall situation, and we are going to brutally expose him with never before heard audio. And when I say never before heard, I mean most likely you never heard it, because this audio's old. I dug this up from the depths that you guys most likely have never seen. And this audio is so good and exposes Dana White so badly, we need to get it to Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall won't need to say another word. He'll just need to start posting this audio left and right of Dana White talking about Jon Jones. It's so good. We'll get to that later in the video. But I want to jump right into it because there's a couple things I want to cover from this post-fight presser, or this post-Dana White Contender Series presser. And I'll link the full thing down in the description if you want to go check it out. But he is asked and he is pressed about multiple topics, and all of them relate to the UFC heavyweight division in one way or another. Now, the first clip that we're going to check out is Dana White talking about Magomed Ankalaev being skipped over for the light heavyweight title. If you don't know that, Pereira is fighting Roundtree at UFC 307 instead of Magomed Ankalaev. I made an entire video about that. I'll link it down in the description. But Dana was asked about that at this press conference. And the reason this matters, and I understand the fan base isn't with me as much on this one as they are with Aspinall. But when you let this happen and you're okay with it and you're like, I don't like Magomed Ankalaev for whatever reason. He doesn't deserve a title shot. I don't care. I'd rather see Khalil Roundtree. You have to realize you're giving Dana White a free pass to do this same shit with Tom Aspinall. And it's disgusting and it's disgraceful. And right here, he kind of just says, oh, well, this isn't the way it happened. He's going to get his shot and blah, blah, blah. This is ridiculous. Listen to this.
With Ankalaev, I guess, being, so highly ranked and him being skipped over, what was the...
He wasn't skipped over. He's got a fight coming up.
He's got a fight coming up when he should be fighting for the title. And someone else who shouldn't be fighting for the title is fighting in his place. And they're fighting 2 weeks apart. Another easier way to say that? I would say probably skipped over. Ankalaev has been skipped over. Just like Tom Aspinall is being skipped over for the dead corpse of Stipe Miocic. And thank God Tom Aspinall is finally speaking up. I made a video about that. I'll link it down below as well if you want to go check that out. I released that earlier today. Tom Aspinall is finally calling out Jon Jones and Dana White for their ridiculous statements. But let's listen to the rest of this.
Ankalaev, we're laying the fights out now. Ankalaev's got a fight lined up. Go in there. Do your thing. Look great. Obviously, you're next. We had to make this fight card, and as you go down the line, you start looking at it. Khalil Roundtree makes a lot of sense, and you said it yourself. No way in hell that's not a fun one.
Khalil Roundtree makes no sense. He arguably lost to Dustin Jacoby like 2 fights ago. He is number 8 ranked. He's on like a 4 or 5 fight win streak. His last win's Anthony Smith, dead body. Okay? Meanwhile, you have Magomed Ankalaev, 11 fight unbeaten streak, arguably won the undisputed title in a draw against Jan Blachowicz where he should have gotten the victory. And instead of giving him the title shot, you make him fight a guy coming off a loss in Alexander Rakic 2 weeks after Pereira's defending his belt against Roundtree. Makes no sense. But this is the world we're living in. You can't give Dana White a pass for that, because that emboldens him. Say, oh, it doesn't. Tom Aspinall doesn't deserve anything. He said that. I covered it in my video from earlier today. He said that. Tom Aspinall's working his way up. This is the same bullshit he's doing with Ankalaev. Yeah, he wasn't skipped over. He's got to earn his shot. Complete and utter horseshit. Next clip we're going to get into. And I'll link this full post-fight down below if you guys want to go check it out. He was asked about the UFC basically erasing Francis Ngannou from history. And the reason Dana White is so far up Jon Jones's ass, Jon Jones has got a dark side to him. Jon Jones has 2 German shepherds. Jon Jones shoots guns. Jon Jones smacks spray paint cans at a teenager's hands when they're trying to do graffiti during unrest. acting like that makes him a badass or the pound for pound number one. Makes absolutely no sense. By the way, Dana says he's coming out with a hit piece about the people, or basically a punch in the mouth about Jon Jones being pound for pound or whatnot. We'll hear that in a minute. But he's confronted about the fact that Adesanya called him out. I did a video about this as well. I'll link that down below. But about Adesanya calling him out for erasing Francis from history. Let's take a listen.
Adesanya's comments last week. I thought he made a good point where, you know, in the whatever show it was, the thing about Francis was kind of washed out. You know, he wouldn't mention Francis's name. And he brought that up, you know, and said he thought you can't whitewash history and that, you know, whatnot. And that seemed to be a good point. Why did you scrub Francis out of the video and that?
I don't know about this.
If he had a power slap cup right now, he'd be taking a drink out of it. And then say, Lene, play dumb. Of course, he's got to play dumb like he doesn't know.
Do you? Do you, Lene? Do you know about this?
So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, save you some of the, you know, back and forth that doesn't really matter. But finally, we start to get an answer from him. And he kind of, you know, just kind of plays it off. Kevin Iole brings up the receipts and starts reading basically what Israel Adesanya said.
Well, we'll find out what happened, and I'll have Lene call you and tell you what the deal is with that. Because if that's true and that was done and it was something that we produced, then somebody in the company made that decision. That definitely, listen, you know me. Right. If I said we did it, I'd say, yeah, fuck him, and this is why we did it.
You know me, Kevin. I'm always honest and truthful. By the way, I just noticed this. Mr. I'm not political, but I bring a political leader onto the broadcast over and over and over again and show him during, you know, show him walking out during the beginning of the pay-per-view. Is this a Trump shirt right here, Mr. I'm not political? I understand they're friends, but I have to point that out. This dude's wearing a Trump shirt to the post-fight pressers. Anyway, let's continue listening to this because it gets worse.
I know nothing about it. Nobody ever asked me about it, and this is the first we're hearing about it. Or I would tell you the...
So I'm just reading this.
For those of you who don't know, okay, and I've covered this before, the ticket on sale presser for 305, Adesanya mentioned Kamaru Usman and Francis Ngannou. They used that in the countdown, but they cut out Francis Ngannou's name. And recently, Israel Adesanya called out Dana White in the UFC for trying to erase Francis Ngannou from UFC history. That's what they're talking about here.
A CBS Sports story. It says, Adesanya reinforced Ngannou's significance to the UFC amid cases where the promotion appeared to scrub mention of the former heavyweight champion. You can never erase Francis's history from the UFC, Adesanya told ESPN while looking straight into the camera ahead of UFC 305 in Perth. So I'm not sure, it doesn't say exactly. There's a video below that also shows Israel talking, but it doesn't talk exactly what video it was he was referencing.
Right. So when we find out, she'll let you know.
By the way, this was definitely intentional. Even if Dana White didn't give the direct order, he's just playing dumb here. His subordinates are like, Dana will really get in our ass if we have any mention of Francis Ngannou on the broadcast or on the countdown. So in reality, it's Dana the reason that this was cut out. And I'll show you only because it's a 20-second clip. Here's what they're talking about: Israel Adesanya calling out Dana in the UFC.
Definitely, like, you know, they're my brothers. They always wish me well, and they always support me in what we do, and I always support them as well. And also, you can never erase Francis' history from the UFC. I'll say that. It's part of history. We need to fix this. I don't like that. I don't like the fact we're trying to just cut out a really important part of history. It's silly. It's really silly, but we'll fix that. That's for later on. We'll fix that.
So there, Israel Adesanya calling him out. And the thing is, this all comes back to Dana White is pissed that Francis Ngannou did what was in his best interest. And therefore, he left the UFC because he had more to gain outside the UFC. And the UFC was too strict and too petty and unwilling to give any type of concessions during the contract negotiations. And this is, you know, what has brought Dana White to the current state that he's in terms of just glazing Jon Jones day in and day out. It's all because he does not want anyone to even suggest, well, Francis Ngannou is the best heavyweight in the world. That's what it truly comes down to. That is why Dana was so desperate to cover up Francis Ngannou. And they put a graphic on the broadcast of some other fighter where they said first Cameroonian fighter in the UFC. which just simply isn't true. There's a fighter before Francis Ngannou plus Francis Ngannou. So they are so desperate to cover him up because they are pissed because he didn't re-sign with the UFC. I've covered that so extensively. Now, the next thing we're going to take a look at is Dana White is asked about Jon Jones basically posting publicly, alluding to he's going to retire after the Stipe Miocic fight, which we already know. And this is when Dana White really starts to cover for Jon Jones and lie about Jon Jones. And I can't wait to bring out the audio of Dana from many, many years ago and expose him so badly for his lies here. But I want to check out first. Here are some Johnny Bones Jones tweets. Look like Tom displaying that amazing UK wrestling. My focus is on Stipe. He actually wrestled Division 1. Best heavyweight of all time right now. Maybe Tom will go on and beat Stipe's record one day. Right now, I'm focusing on GOAT things. Okay? And then somebody says, excuses, excuses. He says, haha, man, you guys have been really begging me lately. Is heavyweight division really that boring without me? Then he says, the beautiful thing about being in my position is I'm not defined by one fight. Most of you grew up watching me win. And then you have this tweet. I guess there was a video that resurfaced recently of me saying that after Stipe, Francis was the only fight I was interested in. That video was recorded well over a year ago. That was recorded before I got injured, before there was an interim champion crowned. I had already voiced that I wasn't interested in any more randoms. Now, magically, I'm ducking a fight that's never been negotiated or discussed at any table that matters. I'm sticking to my plans. Jon Jones jumps for no one. How many belts does one need? How many times do I have to break my own record? So he's alluding to he's going to retire. He's alluding to he's not going to fight Tom Aspinall. My problem isn't that he wants one more fight. My problem is that the UFC and Jon Jones and Dana White are complicit with making a bullshit title fight. They're holding the heavyweight belt hostage, which Tom Aspinall called out recently. And then I think there's another 2 tweets here. There are fighters literally all over the world that think they're in the back of their mind, I can beat Jon Jones. There will be no statues of you. Go out and win more. Make your name greater. That is the only way you do it. And then he says, I'm 37 years old now. I've kicked everyone's ass. My job is finishing strong and making an amazing movie. Go join Tom Brady, Floyd Mayweather, and all the other retired badasses. And then, oh my God, he keeps going on. I didn't even know it was this many. Kick Tom's ass or are you too scared? It feels good to know on the way out of your sport was literally begging you to continue. You never know. Maybe the UFC will offer me a deal I can't refuse. And Dana White's asked about that one specifically. And then, yeah, I'm not even going to read the rest of that because those seem irrelevant. So Dana White is asked about these tweets alluding to he might retire and, maybe the UFC will offer me a deal I can't refuse. And that's where we pick up at this press conference here. Listen to this.
Defend.
Yeah, Jon is one of those, challenging guys to deal with. And I think that, he's talking about retiring, but will he, if the Aspinall thing is really flying out there? I personally think Jon challenges himself and takes the fight. And
let me tell you what Dana's trying to do here. He's trying to get the heat off of him. They're making a garbage title fight in November. By the way, it's only August, so we got to wait another 3 months. It's already been, I don't even know how, it's been over a year and a half since Jones last fought, basically. Okay? And I think in September, it'll be a year and a half. And he's covering up for a shit fight. He's trying to get the heat off of him about the fans by saying, look, I think Jon Jones is going to stay. And soon he says, oh, Jon Jones isn't scared of nobody. And I think he wants to fight Tom.
Yeah, I think he does it.
I think he does it or doesn't. I guess doesn't retire or does it as in fight Tom Aspinall. I'm not sure what he said there. But that's not really that important. Next clip, and this is the last clip, but this is a very long exchange, or the last clip from this press conference, is him specifically talking about Jones more and, talks about the matchmaker shitting on Francis Ngannou and goes into a lot of detail here about Jon Jones. And we're going to expose him badly after what he said here.
Retirement. He says that
Jon Jones was tweeting today saying he's going to retire. Is that what he did?
Hinting at retirement. And then he says that, maybe the UFC will offer me a deal that I can't refuse to come back and fight Aspinall.
Well, there you go. There you go. Okay. You just answered your own question. That's what I think we'll do. Listen, it's always the same dealing with Jon. I can tell. Listen, when we were talking about Francis earlier, right? I have zero animosity toward Francis. Francis was out of my world
Absolute horseshit. He does have animosity towards Francis. I've already played countless clips of that in other videos.
Long time ago. That guy over there and Mick are another story.
They went to so many dinners with Francis Ngannou. That's what he wanted to get at there. I think I mentioned that earlier in the video, but I forgot it was towards the tail end here. I thought that was in a different exchange.
It's a long story. That dude did everything he could in his power to make Jon Jones versus Francis. The fight did not happen, and let me tell you what, it wasn't because of Jon Jones.
This drives me nuts. This whole entire narrative drives me nuts because Francis Ngannou was trying to fight Jon Jones before Francis was even heavyweight champion. But they were icing Francis out of his contract because he didn't want to re-sign. He just wanted to just fight out his deal. So the UFC were stringing him along. And in the meantime, when he was able to fight and ready to fight and not having issues with the UFC, Jon Jones was negotiating with the UFC. And Dana White was saying, yeah, Jon Jones is asking for too much money. And Jon Jones is going to be moving down to 185 after he saw Francis Ngannou fold Stipe like a lawn chair. So it's just simply not true. He's acting like Ngannou ducked Jones, when in reality, I don't believe either guy actually ducked each other. But, you know, he's trying to say Jon Jones really wanted Francis Ngannou, and Francis ran from it. Just more brown-nosing of Jon Jones.
So Jon is a very unique individual to deal with. Jon Jones will fight everybody.
Remember that. Jon Jones will fight everyone. I already know. We know he won't fight Tom Aspinall. You already know that. But compare and contrast that to the never before heard audio I'm going to show you in this video.
Jon Jones was absolutely positive. He wanted Francis. You saw what happened with Cyril Gane. He will tell you, like he told us, that he would do the same thing to Francis Ngannou.
Why didn't you make it happen, Dana? Why didn't you make it happen? Francis was willing to sign a one-fight deal. You couldn't dare risk Jon Jones getting flatlined by Francis and then leaving the organization because you were only willing to pay him bullshit and not give him any type of freedom at all.
He wanted that fight so bad. And for anybody who thinks, I know the whole internet, oh, Jon Jones, he's fucking, you know, that I'm up Jon Jones' ass. These are fucking facts. Facts.
He is up Jon Jones' ass, and these are facts. Yeah, just like he's pound for pound number one. He has one win in the last 4 years against a guy who wasn't even on the pound for pound list. Meanwhile, Islam's knocking down pound for pound fighters left and right. But yeah, Jon Jones, you could ask Dana White what he wants for lunch. And he's like, any educated adult would know that Jon Jones has 2 German Shepherds. Of course he's pound for pound number one. And if you don't know that, you don't know shit about the sport.
And since everybody has been such douchebags about this, I'm coming out with a nice little punch in the face for all you fuckers that think that Jon Jones isn't the greatest of all time.
I hope. When I heard that, the first thing I thought of was he put out a piece about COVID years ago in the media. And then more recently, he put out a piece about UFC 300 and people complaining about UFC 300. I pray that he includes some clips from YouTubers, and I pray that I'm in that video. I don't know if he's just going to put out a video just sucking off Jon Jones, and, you know, just recently he's holding up a Jon Jones trading card, but this man will go to the depths of the earth to just brown-nose Jon Jones. Literally, Michael Chandler to Conor McGregor is Dana White to Jon Jones. Just nonstop. I mean, he could literally tell you what Jon Jones had for breakfast. His nose is so far up Jones's ass.
Dislike him, whatever your beef is with Jon Jones, knock yourself out. There is no way in hell that Jon Jones doesn't want to fight Aspinall.
So
that I guarantee you.
So with that being said, say Jon Jones gets past Stipe and he wants a bigger contract.
Jon Jones is doing Jon Jones right now. That's what he does. You know what I mean? That's what he does. There is nobody that we've ever dealt with that, when I tell you, is not afraid to fight anybody. It's Jon Jones. And I just told her, I believe Jon Jones Aspinall happens if he beats Stipe. So
this is Dana White trying to kind of get some heat off of him. You know, oh, I believe Jones will fight Tom Aspinall. He's basically saying this is contract negotiations for Jon Jones. And I believe he will fight Tom Aspinall. But what the reality is he's trying to get the media and the fans off his back about booking a 42-year-old who hasn't won a fight in 4 years. His last fight, he was brutally KO'd. He's trying to get people to stop complaining about that because he wants them to buy the pay-per-view. He's like, Jon Jones, pound for pound, #1. But what he's saying is here is Jon Jones absolutely wants to fight Tom Aspinall, and Jon Jones isn't scared of anyone. And I just want you to remember that. Let me just rewind this one more time because we're going to jump into this audio, and it's just going to be hilarious. The contrast between Dana White now and Dana White before.
It's past Stipe, and he wants a bigger contract.
Jon Jones is doing Jon Jones right now. That's what he does. You know what I mean? That's what he does. There is nobody that we've ever dealt with that, when I tell you, is not afraid to fight anybody. It's Jon Jones. And I just told her, I believe Jon Jones Aspinall happens if he beats Stipe.
All right, remember that now. Because I'm old enough to remember old UFC 151. I'm old enough to remember UFC 151. Right here. Johnny Bones Jones versus Dan Henderson. And I'm old enough to remember when this fight got canceled. Dan Henderson pulled out a week out, and Jon Jones was offered a replacement fight of Chael Sonnen. A 185er coming off a loss as a replacement. They just wanted to save the card because the card was dog shit. The card was dog shit underneath. And Jon Jones said, no, I don't want that fight. I'm not taking a fight on short notice. I don't want to risk my legacy for taking this on short notice. And let's listen to what Dana White had to say back then. Let's listen to what old Dana White had to say back then. And I need you guys to get this audio to Tom Aspinall because he needs to post this online somewhere. He needs to get people behind this because this is a very similar situation where Dana White, you know, if the roles were reversed, or not the roles were reversed, but if it was something a little bit different regarding Jones and Stipe and Tom Aspinall, this would be Dana talking about Jones. But right now, he wants to cover for Jones's ass instead of speaking the facts that, look, Jones just wants to fight Stipe because Stipe is considered the greatest of all time. Even though Stipe's washed up, we're giving him the title fight because he's a big name. And we're going to protect Jones from Aspinall. And then maybe, just maybe, Jones and Aspinall will happen in the future. But really, we're just giving out undeserved title shots. Listen to this audio here.
We exhausted all the options. We called Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen literally said to me, I'll fight him tonight in Las Vegas at Mandalay Bay or any other casino you choose. And he was ready to go. We called Jon Bones Jones. He's not only is he the world champion, he's one of the top 3 ranked, pound-for-pound fighters in the world. He said, I will not fight Chael Sonnen on 8 days' notice.
And you think, by the way, Tom Aspinall, he's a backup fighter. He's going to be the backup fighter. You think Jones is taking Tom Aspinall on short notice, wouldn't take Chael Sonnen on short notice? And honestly, I don't necessarily blame him. I mean, it kind of was a poor look at the time because it was an easy win for him. But this is what this is what Dana White had to say about Jon Jones back then. But now the circumstances are different. He's got to make a complete 180 and say, oh, Jon Jones isn't scared of anyone. Jon Jones, of course, wants to fight Tom Aspinall. He is a liar, and there's way more to this.
It was certainly one of the biggest draws in the world. So it was only because of the 8 days' notice? I mean, did he give you any other reasoning for why he refused to fight Sonnen?
His coach, Greg Jackson, told him not to take the fight, saying it would be the biggest mistake that he's ever made in his entire career, which is absolutely insane. The guy is the world champion. He's beat all the top guys over the last year and a half. We bought the UFC in 2001. I've done almost 1,800 fights. No fighter has ever turned down a fight, and this is the first ever UFC that's ever had to be canceled.
This is so great. I mean, this could literally be applied perfectly to the Jon Jones Tom Aspinall situation. Because if Jon Jones wanted Tom Aspinall, that's the fight the UFC would make. But Jon is saying, look, I probably only have one fight left in me. I want Stipe. And Dana White's like, okay, and I'll go out there and cover for you nonstop. And that's not it. It gets worse. It gets worse. Listen to this. Listen to this.
Fighter on short notice. How do you answer that?
Well, other than him being a southpaw, they're the exact same guys. They come out of the same camp. They've been training together their entire career. The difference between a guy like Chael Sonnen is Chael Sonnen's a wrestler. He doesn't even hit as hard as Dan Henderson is. The only thing that he's changing is his stance. He's a southpaw. other than that, he doesn't even hit as hard as Dan Henderson hits. He's a 185-pounder. Dan Henderson has knocked out the who's who in mixed martial arts over his entire career. This guy is dangerous, you know. And if you are the champion, and you're the pound for pound one of the best in the world, you should be ready to fight all comers.
Did you guys hear that? When I heard this, I said, you know what? I'm not going to bed. I got to make this video. By the way, if you guys enjoyed these videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because there's more to this. There's more to this. But let's just, I got to hear that again. I got to hear that again. I mean, does this not fit right now? Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall. Listen, Dana, what do you think about Jon Jones wanting to retire after he fights Stipe Miocic, who doesn't deserve a title shot? And then he's going to retire. What do you think about that, Dana?
You know, and if you are the champion, and you're the pound for pound one of the best in the world, you should be ready to fight all comers.
I agree, Dana. I think we should make Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, or Jon Jones can sit on the sidelines, or he can be stripped of the heavyweight belt and then go fight Stipe. And Tom Aspinall can be elevated to undisputed champion. I think we would agree, Dana. If you're one of the best and pound for pound and the champion, you should be willing to take on all comers.
It's never happened in the history of the sport.
We can hear the upsetment in your voice. So let me ask you this. You're in a tough spot because Jones is one of the biggest draws, you could argue, in all of sports right now.
By the way, the card was so bad they had to cancel it. UFC 151 never even happened. It never happened.
And you being the president of UFC, how does this affect the relationship between yourself and Jon Jones?
Well, you know, the reality is the guy's our champion, but you know me, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think and how I feel, and, you know, that's what we're doing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, Jon didn't want to take the fight. He didn't like it. It's not really how this works, you know.
He's sugarcoating it right now. He's covering for him. He's lying for him. He's saying, oh, well, we want to make the Stipe fight. Well, nobody wants to see it. The fans don't want to see it. I've yet to meet one person that wants to see Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic.
One of the things that I always complain about in boxing are guys not fighting guys. If you are the best in the world in your weight class, you definitely shouldn't be worried about fighting
Okay, you definitely shouldn't be worried about fighting a 185-pounder. So there's Dana White going off because Jon Jones didn't want to take on Chael Sonnen on short notice. Okay, which I think he has more of an argument there. Look, I'm the champion. I don't want to risk my belt on 8 days' notice against, a random opponent compared to who I was supposed to fight. Well, what about now? Jon Jones won the belt back in March of 2023. He should have been stripped by now, and the belt should have been vacated, but the UFC only cares about money, so they know Jones versus Stipe with the belt on the line is worth more. If you're going to do Jones versus Stipe, strip Jones of the belt, make Tom the undisputed champion. That's it. That's it. If you're going to be pound for pound number one, this is what's so crazy to me. Dana's so adamant, Jon Jones is the pound for pound number one. Well, then why is he fighting fire department Stipe Miocic, who hasn't fought in 3.5 years? Why? When you have Tom Aspinall, the guy who everyone thinks can beat Jones. And by the way, there's a lot of people saying, I hope Stipe flatlines Jones. Don't say that, because there will be a rematch then. I will bet my life. Stipe beats Jones, there will be a rematch between Jones and Stipe. Dana will say, this is the first time Jones ever lost. This is the first time he ever lost. And of course we're going to give him a rematch. Tom can sit on the sidelines. He's interim champion. He's young. He's got a future. This is a disgrace to the sport. Now I want to end the video by listening to that last part one more time, because it was just so glorious. It was just so glorious. If I can even find it, remember exactly where it was.
Sports right now, between your Jones.
Hold on.
The reality is the guy's our champion, but you know me, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think and how I feel, and, that's what we're doing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, Jon didn't want to take the fight. He didn't like it. It's not really how this works, One of the things that I always complain about in boxing are guys not fighting guys. If you are the best...
Guys not fighting guys. So Dana always shits on boxing for guys not fighting guys. The people have spoken. We want Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. This is an utter disgrace. I'm sick of undeserved title shots. I'm sick of having to wait around for Jon Jones to fight Stipe, a fight that nobody wants to see. I think everyone needs to boycott Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic. And I'm hoping that there's enough pressure that we get Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall instead. Imagine the legacy if Jon Jones defeats Tom Aspinall and rides off into the sunset. Imagine that. But instead, Dana has to lie nonstop and say, well, Jon Jones is the pound for pound #1 and he wants to fight anyone and everyone. Well, you didn't make the Francis Ngannou fight, and now you're not making the Tom Aspinall fight. You have systematically ruined the heavyweight division, and I'm sick and tired of it, and I'm glad that we could expose him with that audio from many, many years ago. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.